Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. They offer a wide selection of high-quality plants, landscaping materials, and home decor. They do amazing high-quality work and can help you transform your indoor and outdoor living spaces into something beautiful. So stop by Casey's Outdoor Solutions today and let them know you appreciate their support for Rock Solid Radio. Visit Casey's today at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana.
Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families, and I am here with my husband, hubby. How you doing today, babe?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How are you doing?
I'm a little nervous.
Why would you be a little nervous? About what?
Because we're talking about a topic that honestly you actually, this was the one class that you scored better than I in college.
Oh, honey. No worries. Just let me grab your hand and lead you through this topic tonight.
Yes. Well, you better tell them what topic it is, because this is the honest truth. You and I went to college together. We're in a lot of the same classes or took the same classes.
Yeah.
But this is the one class that you scored. I scored a B on, and you had an A in.
It was probably an A plus. No, so as part of our education, we had to go through a sex ed class.
Yes.
And when I think back of that class, it was very liberal.
Yes.
It was very whatever.
I think it was called the psychology of sexuality.
Yes,
I think it was.
It was a good class. In the sense of opening your eyes, but sometimes it certainly was not from any religious bent.
No,
that's for
from
sure.
This naive Catholic young girl,
Yeah.
It was an eye-opening class
Yes,
for me.
it was.
Yes.
So, hon, I can see where you're a little intimidated about this topic today, but you just hang in there. I'll take you through it.
I'll let you take the lead.
Today, we are in our third part of the Instant Gratification series, and this one is all about just sex, and in particular, sex and pornography. So we are going to talk about sex and sexual addiction and that type of thing, but you can't really have that conversation very easily without talking about pornography, which is a large part of male directed, but not solely. There's a lot of things there that can be directed at women as well, on both sides of that, both in the industry as well as users. So we're going to have some conversation about it. And some of it, we do want to be respectful, because this is not an occasional problem that we see. We see this in a large percentage of either people who come in or within a marriage. It somehow has muddied or darkened the waters in a marriage. So we're going to handle it the best we can, but we're going to be very proactive in the conversation.
Yes.
So
stay tuned.
Stay tuned,
listening.
and we're going to go through some of what should we actually do so that we can beat this addiction.
Yeah.
But we better thank a few people.
Yeah, this is a PG-13 kind of show too, so please, if you have little ones' ears listening, you might want to put AirPods in or something like that. But before we do, that
would be punishment, having a kid having to listen to these shows, wouldn't it?
Aww. Some of them, I think
that'd be like our kids watching the news.
Actually,
do I have to watch the news?
Actually, if you listen to last week's show about phones, it is one of those shows that kids don't want you to listen to.
Exactly.
Don't want to hear.
Yeah.
So, some of it is just needed, but yet not very popular conversation.
No.
But before we do, we want to thank some sponsors. We want to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions and Maxwell Construction for their support of Rock Solid Radio. We're thankful for those two sponsors, those community partners who have come alongside this podcast and this ministry. And if this is something new, if you're just listening for the very first time, can we just say thank you? Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. It's part of a bigger ministry called Rock Solid Families, and we are in the greater Cincinnati area. And so we're just thankful that you've tuned in.
Yes, and you can catch us at rocksolidfamilies.org. Go onto our web page, and you can check out what we do in terms of all the shows, but also any articles that we're writing or have written, and just other tips and resources that we come into that we think would be valuable to our family. So check us out at rocksolidfamilies.org. Also, if you have something that's pressing, I don't care whether you're in California or you're in Indiana here. We have this crazy thing called the internet, which we've bashed a little bit in some of our instant gratification talk, but there are good things to it as well. And one of those is just the whole idea that we can teleconference and have meetings and help people just about anywhere across the world. So if you would like to reach out, again, you can get us at rocksolidfamilies.org, or you could call our office at 812-576-7625.
Yeah. Next week's show, this is, like we said, this is a series we're doing called I Want It Now, all about instant gratification. And so last week, the first week was kind of an introduction. Last week was about entertainment and phones. If you didn't listen to that, please, especially if you're a parent, please go back and listen. This week is about sex and pornography. Next week is all about money.
Money. Yes. And again, that's another one that is a big driving and dividing force in our marriages and our families. So it touches all of us. So tune into that one. So, Hun, let's go ahead and get right in to the topic.
All right. What's that mean?
Let's jump. Right off the bat, I feel like a failure. Okay. Let's get a little bit of background on this. Okay. I'm going to read a scripture here. And I'm just going to show you how bad I am. Matthew 5:28. But I tell you, anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Okay, show's over. Done.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I have yet to meet a man, run into a man. I can't speak from a woman's perspective due to biological reasons. But I've yet to run into a man that has not sinned in this direction. And there's a reason. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But that whole idea of where your heart is where you're going to end up putting time and energy and money even and investment. And if it's not under control, where it could lead you could be pure destruction. And so the whole idea of just even having a thought, Ephesians 5:3 says, but among you there must not be even a hint of sexual immorality or of any kind of impurity or of greed, because these are important for God's holy people. Well, again, we fail again. And so right off the bat, I think many of us, especially men, go, are you kidding me? I'm so far gone. This is for somebody else, because I can't even begin to live up to this. And there's a reason. This does not mean that you're going to be pure and holy. Only Christ was pure and holy. But we're going to explain to you why these are so dangerous, these lustful thoughts, and left to run amok. They will get you in the muck.
Yeah, but let's be clear. We're not saying that you should just throw your hands up and say, I can't do anything about it. Okay, that's an excuse.
Actually, yeah,
these are all
100%.
Temptations that what Merrill's trying to say is that we all will fall short of and all be tempted by. And so it's really being aware and having our eyes wide open to how Satan uses these temptations, whether it be entertainment and phones, whether it be sex and pornography, whether it be money, other people, whatever it is, that he uses these things. And can I just say, and I just recently was talking to clients about this, two of the enemy's biggest weapons that he uses is shame and isolation. Shame and isolation, for him to think that not just you made a mistake, but that you are a mistake. And can I just say, that is a lie. You can be tempted, but you also can fight those temptations.
Right.
Against those temptations. And that isolation would be the thinking, I'm the only one out here that struggles with that. And that's part of why we're doing Rock Solid Radio, is to help you understand you're not alone and that there is help.
Yeah, you're not isolated, and mistakes do not have to be lifelong failures. Mistakes are opportunities to learn and to grow. Christ is constantly calling us to change, to have a change of heart, to have a change of mind. And so change isn't easy, and we're going to talk about why this particular change is so hard. But the whole idea here is, you are not alone. So don't isolate yourself even more and let yourself dig into a deeper hole by yourself.
Right, condemnation. Right? Yeah, for sure.
So the whole idea here, Hun, is well, why do I feel like a failure right off the bat? Well, we're going to go back to talking about the instant gratification part of it. And this is a bit of a review from our other shows, but it goes back into our wiring, okay? Our wiring is very much about survival. So when I get hungry, I get a hunger pain. I get an arousal for food, okay? And when food comes, I get a pleasure sense. That's why it tastes good, right? And
you're satisfied,
You're satisfied. When I'm thirsty, it's the same way. When I'm tired, I'm sleepy, and my body's giving me all of these things that finally that bed feels so good. And so these are things that God implanted in us so that we would have the ability to survive. We wouldn't just, like, there are people who actually don't have pain sensors, okay?
Yeah.
And that's actually a very dangerous thing because they lack survival mechanisms to keep them safe, and they can do crazy, stupid things that hurt you and I.
Like put their hand in a fire.
Yeah.
Like that hurts.
Yeah, and so one of the things that we are set for getting an arousal out of or a good feeling out of is a drive for sex or procreation. You know, the end goal for sex from a biological standpoint,
from God's intention,
is procreation. Well, even beyond God's creation, because God also intends it to be good, to be pleasing. But from just a biological perspective, it's how you keep the species going.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, and so
we need each other.
We do need each other, and our species needs us. So stripping it down to a basic level, it is wired to our dopamine biochemistry. And knowing what we talked about last time, when you get the arousal or when you get stimulated from any kind of sexual thought or any kind of sexual imagery, the next thing you know, you have the feel good in your mind.
And the desire.
And that is something you would like to repeat. And so it is something that you start to seek. And that's not bad. So one thing is we
in
have
the
to
right
be,
context.
We have to be very careful about saying, oh, that's a terrible thing. And that's from the get-go, you know, when we talk about anyone who even has a lustful thought. Well, you know, the lustful thought is when you've taken it to, you're going to put it into action, when you're actually fantasizing something that is not yours and in marriage, okay? So let's talk a little bit about how we are going to then, or what it does when we let it run amok.
Yeah,
okay?
that's the key. You know, I've worked with a lot of, this is not usually a woman topic. You're leading the way here because you see more men in your office dealing with this and the side effects of how it handles or affects the woman, right? But women come in and say the same thing about food or about alcohol, you know, like those things. For instance, food, we still need food to survive. And so how do you keep that in check and not, you know, go to it for emotional satisfaction or for you to have that when you're stressed out? A lot of women will stress eat, you know, but we still need food. So how do we keep that in check in a healthy way? We're saying that same thing about sex. How do we keep the marriage bed pure and sex in the proper place that God has intended it to be, to procreate and to satisfy us sexually in a marriage atmosphere and environment? Right.
So a question might be, it's natural, so what's the big deal? Why don't we just let it run? Why are we always trying to stifle it? And we want to be very clear here. We're only trying to stifle it outside of marriage, outside of God's way. And the reason for that is when it's done in man's way and not God's way, the statistics are overwhelming, okay? The porn industry is the largest money-making industry across the earth. Okay, I mean, it is huge. They make more money than NFL football, the NBA, Major League Baseball, all of those combined. Right?
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, the idea that it is not just a single country problem, it is a global problem. And things from human trafficking come out of it. Exploitation of people. So you might think it's very innocent for you to sit and watch on your computer somebody having sex, but the back street story to that, the black market, probably came at the expense and on the shoulders of people who were being forced into situations either through intimidation, through money, through drugs that made it a very dark place for them to be.
I'm glad you brought that up, hun, because in a couple weeks, we're actually going to have a guest that works in the industry of the human trafficking and our girls who are being kind of pulled into this. And it's crazy. It's crazy how local and how around us it is. And part of this is this porn industry. You know, what is the thing? It says every second of the day, there are over 30 million unique visitors viewing porn every second. You know, and you mentioned it's the largest, fastest growing industry in the world, $97 billion, with the U.S. coming in at over $10 billion a year just in porn. Like, people, if you're saying, oh, that's not around us, you're crazy. It's coming across the phone of the person sitting right next to you. And that is something that we have got to get a handle on, because it's consuming our young people and our old people, and it's destroying marriages and families.
Right. You know, we even rationalize it by, well, it's just another adult woman. Well, no, it's not. So it is into underage girls. It is into even small children. It is into even babies. All right. So it is disgusting and sick. Yeah. And it's the sickness permeates in all kinds of different areas, especially when we can tie dopamine and money.
Yes.
Okay, when I can get stimulation, when I can get somebody have a point of arousal and I can attach money to it, wow, it starts to feed itself like fire. So there's no wonder why it is such a money-making industry.
And as a parent, please do not bury your head in the sand. Your kids have the availability to have it pop up on their phone without even them searching for it. And if you're not putting some kind of filters or some kind of monitoring on your child's phone and what they're looking at and what can get into their phone or onto the website, you know, you're kind of ignoring the fact that it's right in front of us. It's available at a fingertip of every child.
Hun, let's just talk about within the marriage. Okay, so let's say we've got somebody who is married, and we're talking about maybe a guy here who he's married, he's looking at pornography, and his wife either knows or she finds out that he's looking at pornography. Okay, I know lots and lots and lots of men in that situation. Okay. You know women who have also either know or have found out that their husband has been looking at pornography and seeking it out. Tell me how the ladies respond to you. Are they encouraged that he's out looking at pornography?
Yeah, I mean, we have some who have this distorted view that pornography is healthy within a marriage. And I'm just telling you, it's not. Even if you're viewing it together, there is an unrealistic attachment that these men get, mostly men, from the view of what they're seeing, okay? And even if you're trying to reenact it or, you know, mimic it, all of a sudden these women feel like, I'm not good enough, or I can't live up to that, or I don't look like that. And so it shames them and it really demeans that relationship. So please, even if the two of you have said that you're okay with this, please hear us. It is not okay. And it's not healthy for your marriage and the future of your marriage and the health of your marriage.
Right. Now, what we actually find out is that, as you said, hon, there's a heavy use of each other, and typically the man using his wife, even if they are coupled together watching the pornography, it is more likely the man to prompt the idea of, well, we should try this or we should try that. And if it is not of the two of them spontaneously, it means one of them is not necessarily good with the idea. And before you know it, you know, it becomes harder and harder for them to both feel like they're both being served well and intimately.
Hey, let's say you're not talking pornography. Let's say you're talking about sex outside of your marriage. I actually have some couples who come in with this very distorted image that if you have sex outside of your marriage, that it makes your marriage healthier and happier.
As long as you agree to it.
Yeah. I mean, I've actually had couples who have kind of kept that part a secret for a while until they tell us that they've gone outside and they've kind of shared themselves with others, and that somehow that's going to make them better as a couple. Can I just say that is a lie of the enemy, and God's not going to bless that or protect your marriage in that. And so please get some help for that. Go cold turkey with that and do not go to that as your option.
Yeah, we've not ever seen that turn out well. And
no.
so people are fooled in the short term of, okay, well, yeah, maybe that would be good. And they start with the experimentation until finally somebody, because it is very difficult, especially for ladies, to separate sexual intimacy from their emotions.
Yes.
And so when all of a sudden she sees that her man is sharing an emotional process with somebody else, it is very, very difficult not to be feeling like somebody's having an affair on you.
You know, and you don't hear it as much anymore, but the whole polygamous thing, you know, the guys were always great with that. They loved that, having 3 or 4 wives. But the women, it was very hard. And if they were being honest and outside of that relationship, they'll tell you, like, that was so demoralizing and so demeaning to them to think that their husband only gave them a day a week or, you know, a couple times a month, and he was getting shared with all these other women.
Right.
Like, that's not healthy.
Yeah. The bottom line, guys, is there's a reason why God made sexual intimacy a purity between husband and wife, because it gets really messy otherwise.
Yeah.
And it involves people getting hurt.
Yeah.
And so sin is whenever we go against God's nature. God knows how his nature works and how to preserve it for the long haul and for many generations to come.
Yeah.
And so when we go outside of it, people get hurt. And this is just another way that when we dabble in these experiences, we are going to get hurt or hurt somebody.
Yeah. So let's talk about some practical things. Even get a piece of paper out. Let's talk about what can we do as a husband and wife, or a man or a woman who's dealing with some kind of sexual addiction, pornography, sex outside the marriage. Maybe you've had an affair. Let's talk about what to do to save the marriage and create a healthy environment for you to grow.
Right. So, Hunt, what I did is mostly because more of this comes in from my side in terms of helping men deal with the addictive side of the pornography or sexual attraction. And so, you know, we're faith-based, and so we're certainly always talking about doing things God's way. We're certainly always involving prayer. But like everything, prayer is not the sole answer. It takes work.
Yeah.
It takes a very
Action.
concentrated bit of action to focus what you're going to do. So I actually put together the steps that I use to help men walk through this. And they're not necessarily in the exact order, just depending on where somebody is and their experience that they're having. But they're in a pretty close sequence of, okay, so then we want to start rolling into this next place, okay?
Yeah.
So the first thing, they've come to me, all right, with this challenge. And so the very first thing is they're doing the right thing, typically, if they've gotten to this point, because there's a level of admission.
Yeah.
Okay? We have to admit, this is not working well for me.
Yeah.
Okay? Whether I'm feeling shame, whether I'm being shamed, whether my marriage is splitting up, whether it's taking too much time, whether I'm getting in trouble, whatever it is, I have to admit that there's a bad reality here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that means involving someone else. You know, yes, confess before God. God already knows, but confessing it is good for the soul. It also brings that darkness into the light. And now Satan has no longer a hold on you, but he is also wanting you to confess it to someone else. I'm not saying you have to go on a public service announcement, you know, like from the pulpit at church, or, you know,
get on Facebook. Guess what?
On the intercom at work. But we're saying somebody, a trusted pastor, a counselor, a spouse, you need to confess this so that Satan no longer can play and have havoc on you.
Right. And Hannah, I stress that it is confidential. And the reason why it's confidential, if it only involves you, then I don't really care if you want to shout it from the mountaintops. But it's most likely involving other people you're close to. And so for the sake of protecting them, you do this in confidence. You weigh who you're going to tell it to, whether it is the actual person that you offended or whether it is a pastor or priest. But we keep it very tight because it is that is the sign right there that, this is a very difficult and tender kind of subject.
Yes,
I can't just exploit it and blow it out. I've got to be careful because of the emotions of other people.
Yeah. So, even working with your spouse or your pastor on, okay, what are the next steps? And we would say you would say the next steps would be strict boundaries. Where is it that you felt tempted? Where is it that you fell? And then let's back up and let's put some guardrails up to protect yourself from that again.
You can't oversimplify this. Like I don't look at guys and say, well, it's time for you to just get away from that. That is not concrete enough. So I will sit down with a guy and I will have him kind of explain and draw out like what his day is in terms of proximity to phones and computers and temptations. Like, tell me, help me out. Where do you go? What do you do? And then we actually set very hardcore, and I will even emphasize very strict boundaries. Yeah. So let's be very clear about this. Like, I never, ever attach, and this is where we get in trouble, I never attach a sorta kinda boundary. Like, that's like saying I'm only going to
like
start smoking 5 cigarettes a day instead of 10 cigarettes a day. Yeah. You'll do that for 2 or 3 days, and before you know it, you'll be back up to 20 cigarettes a day. Okay? And so the idea here is we have to be very hardcore. And that also, it helps the guys know I'm going all in.
That's right.
Right? So like the idea of a phone boundary. Okay, the phone, first off, is going to have no protection on it in terms of hiding it from my spouse or the people I love. Like, it's going to be wide open passwords, those kinds of things.
To the people that you trust.
To the people that I trust. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to have protection on it from outside sources.
I was going to say,
Yeah. I am going to, like, if the phone is my go-to, it's going, and I know that I tend to do this at night when I'm tired, I'm getting ready to go to bed. Okay, phone's not even going to be around. Phone's going to be
near the bed.
Yes, in a different room, locked up, whatever. Okay, I tend to hang around guys, and I'm with guys, and in the restroom at work, there's a whole stack of Playboys or whatever it is, and they don't even put those in there anymore. But
I was going to say, those are magazines, I think.
You get the picture.
Yeah.
But the idea of I'm saturated or surrounded by it, I'm going to change that. Okay?
Or you hang out with these people and we all get drunk, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, I'm leaving the bar with a girl. Like, you've got to say, I'm not going to that bar anymore. I'm not going to drink with those guys anymore. Like, you've got to run as far away as you can. And there's some humility in this to say, like, I'm going to humble myself and admit that I am not good if I go to the bar.
Right. There was a time when, especially when I was in my, early 20s and stuff, where guys, we'd go to strip clubs and things like that with bachelor parties and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, everybody's doing it and it's a lot of fun. If that is contaminating your marriage, it absolutely is not good. It's not good for any of us in the sense of,
and I would say just 99.9% it's going to pollute your marriage.
It's going to pollute your marriage, but it's also going to feed an industry that we don't need to feed.
Yes.
And so, it's not about being prudish. It's about being prudent in terms of taking care of the things that you value. And so these are the things we set up the strict boundaries on.
Yeah. And then the next thing is to find an accountability partner, someone that you are going to give permission to come back at you and ask you some tough questions, that maybe does have those protection. There's different software that you can have someone be your go-to person that will be alerted if you get into any of those things. And so having somebody that's going to ask you and follow up with you, preferably another man that's going to have a man-to-man conversation.
Never cross-sex.
Yeah.
Never.
Well, I'm talking about like if it was your spouse.
Yes. You could talk to your wife, but that would even be to where she was in the understanding process.
That's why I'm saying it would be better if it was a man.
Right. And so
someone else.
And somebody who's going to really hold you accountable, but you giving them permission to do that, and they can speak strongly, but in a respectful way to help bring you along. Because, again, the end product is not going to be good if we don't work this problem out.
And I think the reason why it should be a same-sex accountability partner is for this next thing, and that is, what happens if I am tempted again? What's my go-to plan for the next step? And so if it's your wife, it's going to kind of create a little fuzziness of, she's going to get more mad at me, so I'm not going to go to her. But if it's another dude, that you could call or text, then that's a little different story.
These are called my fire drills. All right. So many times on the show, I've talked about fire drills, and we do fire drills. And I did fire drills for many years in the schools because it's a very emotional time. If a fire breaks out in an elementary school building, it can get very emotional and crazy. Okay. So we practice the fire drill so that the kids know what to do when and if the storm hits, so we can keep the emotions down. Yep. Here's the problem. We oftentimes say that we are going to start dealing with our pornography problem. And tomorrow or whatever. And we just say that. That's about the level we go. Guys, you need to start doing the fire drills, meaning, okay, listen, what am I going to do if I see this picture, if I'm in this environment, if I start having these thoughts? What am I going to do? I want you to play it out before it actually happens. Again, you may not be able to cover everything that could ever happen to you in this deal, but there's a good chance you can cover the things that normally happen to you, okay? Yep. And so you have a go-to plan, and a lot of times that involves, listen, if all of a sudden I'm driving down the road and I'm starting to go down the sexual fantasy road, I need to have something at the tip of my fingers that I go to. Maybe it is I actually call somebody and just have a regular conversation rather than letting my brain drift while I'm driving, okay? Yeah. So I have to have the go-to plan, and I have to begin to practice it. Don't think that you're just going to know what to do just because you said, I'm quitting the pornography thing.
Yeah. And then bring God into this conversation, solicit his help. He is where our strength comes from, and the Holy Spirit is there to help you. And so, you call it flare prayer.
Flare prayer. You got to have a flare prayer. So a flare prayer, actually, one of my guys, we were working together, and I talked about the idea of, if we truly believe in the power of the Holy Spirit, and that we can surrender to the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit can be invited into our heart and come in and work for us and intercede for us, then when you are in the middle of having some thought, or you're being directed towards something in the pornography line or something that's not going to be good for your marriage, to instantly let that be a trigger that you go to prayer. In the name of the Holy Spirit, please, Lord, help me. I need
Satan.
Yes, protect me here. And so this was happening frequently for this gentleman I was working with, and he's like, I just call them flare prayers. They just come up and bam.
So if you're listening, we'll give you credit, whoever you are.
Yeah. So no names mentioned.
No.
So a flare prayer, just go quickly in prayer, and it's very difficult to stay in prayer with God and keep the pornographic thought running.
We are saying to set guardrails and to raise the bar and where you're going and who you're surrounding yourself with. But the reality is that we're all human, and that we are going to fail in places. Maybe this isn't going to be the place. Maybe there's a new thing. Maybe you start drinking more because you're not doing sex, pornography, whatever that is. We're saying, let's not sit there and beat ourselves up. Let's measure our progress and see, okay, I went 2 weeks without looking at anything. I went a whole month and then I failed. Well, don't just beat yourself up and then go back to where you were. Right. Hopefully the progress is going to keep you one step forward, 2 steps back, or is it 2 steps forward, 1 step back?
One step, two. Two's really bad when you go 2 steps back.
Yeah.
So when I'm working with a guy, I have him measure progress for this reason, hon. Progress, one, it can make me at times feel defeated, but it can also, when I'm being defeated, it can help me define a little bit more clearly what's going on in my environment.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so
where you failed, where you stumbled.
Where does this tend to happen? Okay. Does it tend to happen later in the day or at night, or when I'm hanging around these people? So I have my guys chart. Okay, and they very simply, you could either do it in the phone notes on your phone, or you could do it on a piece of paper or whatever, but it's very simple, where they chart down I've approximately had this many times where I caught myself thinking in this way. And then really, just for the sake of giving me some sort of quantitative measure, I will score. Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, give yourself a score that you felt that you deserved today. Well, I deserved a 5 today because I struggled, or a 1, I just flat out blew it today, okay? Or you know what, I just kept it at bay, and I was okay. I'm going to give myself an 8 or a 9, all right? Because we want to see, like you said, the goal here is to get greater and greater distance because we're building endurance to beat this. And so I've made it 2 days. I've made it 3 days. I made it 4 days, right? We do the same thing when we're going free of drugs. Like somebody will say, I'm 362 days sober today.
I got my 90-day chip. I got my 2-day trip, whatever, chip.
And that's why we do that, because actually as the duration gets longer, you actually get more strength from it. You're like, no, man, I've put a lot into this. I'm not just going to trash it here. So that's why we do that. And it may be bumpy at first because you feel like you're failing, but you just keep at it. All right. We've got to get traction.
And I think that if you are measuring progress and you're really tracking, like you said, hon, I think you're going to see some trends. And maybe you were in denial, or maybe you were blinded by the idea that it is this certain place, or it is this certain time, or it is this certain people that drags you into that temptation, that you're just going to say, no, I'm not even going into that bar. I'm not even going to hang out with that person. I'm not even going to open that page up on the web. We just learn, but sometimes we're just so blinded by it. We need a little bit of outside perspective.
I will always find a trend. When I'm working with guys, I always will find a trend. It'll be either a time of day. It'll be, whether they are drinking is involved or something along that line. It'll be maybe during a very stressful time. But depending on the man, I will find a trend. And when we locate the trend, then we will say, okay, so this is what we need to do. Like if it's when you're really tired and you're going to bed at night, we've got to change that setup, okay, so that we can safeguard the opportunity for Satan to knock on your door.
Yeah. Remember what I said, the two biggest tactics of the enemy, shame and isolation. And so your next step for your men is don't be in isolation. Find a support group. Find other men that you can have around you, not just maybe one accountability partner, but a group of men, like-minded followers of Christ that would not just shame you and, or join you, but hold you accountable and encourage you to do things that are going to be healthy and safe for your family and for you.
Right. And part of the problem with just coming like to me as the coach, I'm typically in a situation like this, I'm maybe like 1 hour a week, okay? And so we've got all these other hours. And so we want to build the support staff around you with people that we trust. And so other support groups, other good friends that are kind of speaking into your life in a good way. That's why we want that support.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, we want to create this challenge for you. And one of that, part of that is for you to open your eyes to the fact that this is a spiritual battle for your mind, your heart, your life, your family, your marriage, whatever situation, your work. Sometimes people are putting at risk their jobs because of this addiction or this attraction, this temptation, this instant gratification that's keeping them from doing what they're supposed to do.
Right.
This is a spiritual battle.
Yes, it is a battle. Satan wants nothing more. He loves when our families fall apart. He loves when we are stressed and anxious and all of these things due to the things that we sin with. So make no mistake about it, this is a spiritual battle. And because it involves such a fleshly desire that is so powerful, it's easy.
And so
it's
basic.
An easy mark.
Yeah.
It's an easy mark. And like I told you at the beginning of the show, I've yet to meet a man that hasn't had a level of challenge here, okay? And so let's just be real about it. Let's, hun, you and I talk about it. There's a whole nother section about this, like meeting each other's needs, and and we've done shows on. It's not my wife's job to keep me out of pornography, but she does need to know what level of intimacy that I desire, and I need to know what she desires, and we've got to work that balance. And one dangerous things that we don't want to do is seeing sexual intimacy used as a leverage or tool, because it doesn't end well for either one of you. All right?
Yeah, ladies, especially we're talking to you, you cannot hold your body hostage and expect your husband to respond. I would get help, but because, we need each other. We need each other as husband and wife, sexually, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And so I want you to be healthy, okay? Don't just isolate and shame your partner into changing. That's not how God works. It's through compassion and empathy, but accountability and healthiness that he's going to grow your marriage and your family.
Yeah. Yeah, so we don't minimize the problem,
No.
but we do work through the problem.
Together.
All right. So listen, we hope that this show is helpful. This is something that that I do deal with very frequently. If you're struggling, your husband or boyfriend is struggling with this, please reach out. I mean, this is a conversation that, obviously we handle it very one-on-one fashion in a very customized way to meet the needs.
In a very confidential way.
Very confidential way. So please reach out. So, hey, we're going to wrap things up. We want to thank Maxwell Construction and Casey's Outdoor Solutions for continuing to help us get good programming like this out and about. Please help us share it. Give us a 5-star rating. Share it with your friends, and just come alongside of us and continue to help us doing what we do.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening to Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day. Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Maxwell Construction, who has been our sponsor since the very beginning. For over 30 years, Maxwell has delivered the highest quality projects by holding to their core values of customer satisfaction, positive attitude, respect, and excellence. So if you have any kind of commercial construction need, give Maxwell Construction a call today at 812-537-2200.